Hi guys, today we are going to be playing with the newest palette from Glaminatrix, which I love Glaminatrix. I feel like with their last couple of releases, honestly the last probably 5 releases, they've just knocked it out of the park and killed it. And this is no different because this is the, what are you called? Rich Romantic palette. So this is also kind of a spin on a neutral palette, I suppose. And I feel like they've been going in that direction for a little while now. And I'm not mad at it. I think that the color story of this is really, really pretty, very versatile. A lot of people are going to love this. Do I think maybe it's a little too monochromatic? I don't know. Maybe a little bit, but also I'm not the hugest fan of like those kind of mauve-y, purpley shades. Like I like purples, but this isn't my favorite color story that Glaminatrix has ever done. But I do think the palette is beautiful and I can see how there would be room for this in their collection, if that makes sense. So I'm going to show you 3 looks with this today. This palette is launching on the 7th at 6 p.m. PST. I will have all of the information down below in my description box. I also do have an affiliated code with the brand, which is just Annette, and I think it will save you 15% off. It could be 10%. It used to be 15. I'm not sure if they've changed it, but anyway. We're going to do 3 looks with this. I've already filmed 2. I'm going to do 1 on camera today. And I think we should just go ahead and get in. I like to keep my intros short because that's who I am. I've already primed my eyes with my Natasha Denona eyeshadow base. And I just basically for this look want to do something that, or I just want to use shades that I haven't used yet. So I'm thinking I want to play in sort of this corner here. I think I've used most of the rest of the palette. This shade I'm not really a fan of because it's not a color that I ever use, so I'm not going to be using that. This one I'm not sure if I've used. I can maybe use a little bit of these two. I've definitely dipped more into the lighter shimmers, but I think maybe these two together with these two could look kind of nice. And I think these two together also will look really fun. So we're going to start with this one as the transition shade, and then I'll use this to deepen it up with, and we'll kind of just see where we end up. So I'm going to start with a shade called Devotion, and I'm going to pack that pretty heavily just into my crease there. I want to see just how pigmented this shade is. That is such a pretty color. I really like that. I do feel like this is more of like a spring release though, and I feel like a lot of brands right now are coming out with things that are not at all like very seasonal. Like some brands are coming out with Halloween stuff, but then there are other brands like Glaminatrix, and I feel like Glam Bunny as well with their, you know, pastel palette. I'm like, what time of the year is it again? Just a little confused, but I like that brands are trying different things. As you can see, this is very pigmented. Did I pull this up a little too high? It's possible, but we're just gonna have to see what happens, I suppose. But I do think this is a really pretty color. Super fun, and I like it as an addition to this palette. I feel like it's maybe a little, not surprising, but unexpected. Yeah, I really like that. That is beautiful. I'm gonna go ahead and take some of that shade underneath my eye as well. And then we're gonna use the deepening shade and see how that turns out. And that is a shade called Lover. So I'm just gonna start packing that very heavily in the outer corner of my eye and see how these lay on top of each other. I have no doubt in my mind that these are gonna perform well because I haven't had any problems with this palette at all, really. And I would say that goes for most of the Glaminatrix shadows in general. I don't really struggle with them. I think they're very easy to work with. They blend well, they build well. And this appears to be no different. That is layering very nicely. I'm gonna keep the shade mostly on like just the outer portion because I do want to make sure that it is still very bright and corally in the front here. And I think I'm also not gonna take this underneath my eye. I want to keep all of the kind of drama just in the very outer corner of my eye. I am, of course, going to use my NYX Glitter Primer like I always do with my shimmers, especially with shimmers that are like this beautiful and this sparkly. I feel like it really just brings out the best in them. So I'm just going to apply that with a flat brush. This is my Rephr 21. I have a lot of brushes that I like to use with my shimmers. I'm really not that picky when it comes to which one I use. It's just really whatever I see in front of me that's clean at the time. So I think I'm going to use... Like I said, I'm thinking I want to use this shade and this shade, so maybe I'll start with this one sort of on the outer portion and then use this one in the front. Not sure how this is going to look. I feel like I have dipped into this a little bit. I don't want to have like too much of this shade. I just want to have a little bit just sort of right here. That is so pretty. Like, all of these shimmers are beyond stunning, and Glaminatrix is really just killing it with their shimmer formula. I think that they're always just so pretty and sparkly and shiny and shifty, and I really like that. That is beautiful. I'm gonna try not to go too overboard with this. I am layering it over the outer corner of my eye because I just can't help myself, but I do want to leave enough space in the front here for that other shade because I want to make sure that I put on enough of these shades so that we can really see the shift in both of them if possible. Ideally, if you really want to show off the shift in a multi-chrome or a very strong duochrome, I would say put it all over your lid and you'll really see it, but since I'm testing out this palette and I want to try out as many shades as possible, can't really do that with every look. So I'm going to take this shade next, which I don't think I've used yet. This is a shade called Charming, and I'm just going to put that, like I said, basically in the rest of my lid. This one reminds me a little bit of the like iridescent shade, which is up top, because it has a very similar, like that one also has a red shift to it. This one is a little bit more opaque, I would say, but overall they're kind of similar on the lids. But that is really pretty. Like, I very much enjoy all of the shimmers in this palette. I think they're just so gorgeous. And they're also just so easy to work with. Like, they pick up on a brush really nicely. I've never had any issues with hard pan or anything like that. They're very creamy, very smooth, but they don't really crease on me. I mean, sometimes I have a little bit of creasing, but I mean, that's to be expected on my very hooded eyes. It's rare that shimmers like don't crease at all, especially with creamy shimmers like this. They do tend to crease a little bit, but I have very minimal creasing with anything from Glaminatrix, and like that looks so pretty. That is beautiful. Is this a little similar to one of the other looks I've done? Maybe. That's kind of what I mean. Like, I feel like a lot of looks are going to end up looking sort of similar just because of the color story and because a lot of the shimmers also look sort of in the same, kind of in the same ballpark, you know? So I think I'm just gonna, for the front portion of my lower lash line, take a little bit of the iridescent shade because I want to see just how different these two are on the eyes, because I feel like they're not going to be that different. I'm not going to spray this or anything. I just want to have a little bit. I'm also wearing this shade as my face highlighter. I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see that, but it is such a gorgeous highlighting shade that I can definitely see myself using that as a highlighter whenever I do end up using this palette again, because it's just easy. So you can see they're pretty similar. Like on the eyes, once you get it on the eyes, they're quite similar. Which I don't really mind that, but also maybe we could have had a different shade instead. I don't know. I think they're both pretty in their own way. But now that I do have them both on my eyes, like literally right next to each other, I'm like, did we need both? Unsure. So I think that's gonna be it. I know this is a very quick video, a very quick look, but I don't have a ton of time right now. So I'm gonna quickly finish off with this look and I'll come show you the other looks that I've done as well. The look is done. I just put on some lashes. These are the Dreamer lashes from Unicorn Cosmetics. Some of my favorites. I know I say that every single time I put on a pair of lashes, but like, they really are. So I'm going to show you the other two looks that I've done as well and sort of just give you my thoughts on this palette overall. I wanted to really try out most of the shades in this palette. So for the first look, I mostly focused on the purple shades, like the pinks and the purples, because also it would go with my top. So in my mind, it made sense. And I really liked how they performed. I will say the only thing that I feel like is maybe a little bit different with this palette is some of the mattes feel a little bit, not sheerer, but just a little thinner than what I've been used to in the past. Not to say that they don't perform well, like they still build, they still blend, they still, you know, look really nice and pigmented, but I feel like it takes a little bit longer to get the same amount of pigment with some of the purples, which not really a huge deal. I mean, it takes an extra, 30 seconds to build up a shade. Again, not a huge deal. I think that the end result ended up being beautiful. The shimmers are so pretty, so sparkly, so nice. For the second look, I wanted to see just kind of how neutral I could get this because I wanted to test out the neutral shades in this. And they're very unique shades of neutrals. I did decide to actually set my primer before I went in with the mattes here because I wanted to get a really, really nice and smooth blend, because I found that the lightest of the browns wasn't like super light, so I just wanted to see just how smooth of a blend I was able to get. And I would say probably don't set your primer, because I found that they took a little longer to build up that way, which I mean, it makes sense. But sometimes with neutrals, I found, especially with something like the Pat McGrath neutrals, they actually perform better on a set base, and it's been something that I've kind of been playing with while using her shadows, because I found them a little hard to blend sometimes. But with this formula, I would say definitely don't set your primer even using the neutrals, because they perform better on top of a sticky base, which I mean is always the case anyway. But the end result still ended up being beautiful. I really liked all of the looks that I've done with this. I love the look I'm wearing today. I think it is really, really stunning. It's very romantic, which I mean is the name of the palette, so it makes perfect sense that that is how I feel about the look. And I think overall, if you like this color story, if you like Glaminatrix as a brand, if you've tried them before, you're gonna love this palette too. It is a really, really nice formula, really nice quality. The shimmers are out of this world beautiful, and I'm very happy that I have it in my collection. Now, would I have bought this palette if I wasn't sent in a PR? I'm not sure about that. I would say probably no, just because of the color story isn't my absolute favorite. But yeah, just looking at these shimmers, like I would maybe buy the palette just for the shimmers alone. That's how I feel about it. I think that for me, I'm definitely going to be reaching into this for the shimmers, not so much for the mattes. But I think the quality of the palette is really nice, and if you like it, I think you're going to love it. So those are going to be my quick thoughts on this. Let me know if you plan on picking up this palette. Let me know if you have any palettes from Glaminatrix and which one is your favorite. I think for me, my favorite is still the Nearly Neutral palette. Nearly Natural, Nearly Neutral is one of the two. Anyway, I think that's honestly still my favorite palette from them, because I use it so much, and I think it's just really, really nice, which is surprising for being me. Anyway, that's going to be it for today. If you want to see some more Glaminatrix content, I of course have a playlist. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.